What is high-performance anxiety? The inappropriate eating side of better anxiety. Despite the negative and pessimistic, "what if I can't do that" thoughts in your head and the anxiety caused by these thoughts, you are very successful in what you do. Striving for perfection, planning everything to the smallest detail, and constantly striving to be better. But honestly, do you think you have a self-consuming personality? The first image that appears in our minds of someone with an anxiety disorder is undoubtedly a state of panic accompanied by anxious eyes, messy hair, sweating and shivering. However, anxiety is not always the case. Always busy, the desire to be in control of everything, high achievements, perfectionism. A tendency to overthinking. Many people suffer from high-functioning anxiety, who go to great lengths to not allow racing thoughts, anxiety, and fear to control their lives. Often by following the rules and noticing the details perfectly. Although people with all of the above symptoms make an incredible effort to correct their behavior and attitudes from time to time, it cannot be said that they are very successful. The most important reason for this is that these people often cannot get rid of the vicious circle in which thoughts turn into worries and worries consume thoughts. These people, who are overthinking, obsessed with detail, and very successful at turning their thoughts into anxiety, ask, "What if that happened?" He tries to be prepared for the possibility that there are hundreds of possibilities for any situation, but with a slight difference compared to people with generalized anxiety disorder. People with high-functioning anxiety can often mask this chaotic circuit and confusion in the realms of thought and emotion with smiles, laughter, accomplishments, and a moderate dose of extroversion. Ironically, this unreleased emotional and mental energy always provides the motivation to do more, achieve more, and excel, and is known to be the most common trait of people with high-functioning anxiety. What is high-performance anxiety? High-functioning anxiety at first glance can be considered a very positive and ostentatious personality trait, just like the perfect personality trait. Having high-functioning anxiety at first glance can have a positive meaning for you, no matter how anxious and suffering you are, so that you do not let it affect your life negatively. On the contrary, you can use it well as an impetus to improve yourself. Although hyperfunctioning anxiety is very common, the fact that it has no psychiatric diagnosis, that is, it is not seen as a serious mental health problem, supports this notion. However, high-functioning anxiety has been on the agenda of mental health professionals for a long time, and there are numerous research findings that individuals with traits and attitudes such as perfectionism and workaholism experience high levels of anxiety. The most important reason that high-functioning anxiety is not considered a serious mental health problem is that it does not interfere with the conduct of daily life. People with high-functioning anxiety experience high levels of anxiety without any problems with work, education, or relationships. Generalized anxiety disorder is defined as anxiety are physical symptoms resulting from these feelings that are detrimental to a person's daily life function, responsibilities, and work life. The definition does not apply to high-functioning anxiety disorder. So, is the fact that your high level of anxiety does not interfere with the normal course of your life or is reflected in your behavior a really good reason not to consider it a problem? Although the feeling of anxiety does not interfere with everyday life in any way, its cognitive, emotional and physiological effects can manifest themselves at a high level. Rumination, defined as restlessness, irritability, trouble sleeping, palpitations, mental rumination, and other symptoms of anxiety that are not always noticed by the people around you, are among the symptoms experienced by high-functioning anxiety disorder. The only difference from generalized anxiety disorder is the behavioral aspect of the job. That is, not all of these symptoms interfere with your daily life. People with high-performance anxiety, who appear highly productive, hardworking, perfectionists, successful and physically active on the outside, live with a huge cloud of anxiety, rumination, and anxiety on the inside. What are the symptoms of severe anxiety? Research shows that people with generalized anxiety disorder see the world in fundamentally different ways. People with generalized anxiety disorder often see the glass as half empty even when there is no obvious cause for concern or anxiety. People with anxiety disorders may feel constant mental fatigue because their minds never stop. Preoccupation with the constant cycle of stress and the worst-case scenario can be exacerbated by the fact that usually non-anxious people find this way of thinking irrational, emotional, and unreasonable. On the other hand, individuals with high-functioning anxiety suffer a lot under this confident outward appearance, despite all the symptoms of anxiety, and appear to be very in control and able to go about their daily work without any disturbance. Many people with mild or severe anxiety are able to perform their basic tasks but feel limited in areas other than these basic tasks, and worst of all, they often only realize there is a problem when it arises. So, at what point, why and how does this situation, which is not reflected outside or affects the daily flow of the individual, begin to become harmful? How high-performance anxiety hurts you. It is an inescapable fact that being a perfectionist, able to handle more than one job at the same time, produce and work consistently, is rewarded and encouraged in many areas of society. You are absolutely right in thinking that fatigue, frustration, and exhaustion are perfectly normal things that everyone experiences. So, at what point does suffering from chronic stress due to endless to-do lists, ever-increasing expectations, and a fear of failure indicate that you are on the verge of intense anxiety? The main difference between people who can act without symptoms of high-functioning anxiety and people who can take action with high-functioning anxiety is their anxiety symptoms. If you are restless during the day, if you have problems sleeping, if you feel tense, confused, anxious, and tense and notice it affecting your gut, you may have high-functioning anxiety if you have symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder both mentally and physically, even though they don't. It interferes with your daily responsibilities. People with high-performance anxiety are able to take on much more responsibilities than most people. But just because you can lift a very heavy rock doesn't mean it isn't heavy. Most of us, whether we realize it or not, don't mind shouldering this heavy burden as long as it doesn't negatively impact our daily lives. Many highly successful people in their careers, private lives, and relationships may not take these symptoms into account unless they experience a decrease in their performance or productivity. Even if they experience the physiological symptoms of intense fear, persistent anxiety, and chronic stress, unless the effects are tangible in terms of behavior and attitude. Most of us say, "I don't have a problem. Everything is going well in my life." Even though we don't care about this situation, despite our great accomplishments, high average grades, and great relationships, we feel pretty exhausted and exhausted. Exhaustion and anxiety syndrome. When people with high-performance anxiety experience it in the most realistic way and realize that there is something wrong with their lives, it manifests itself as fatigue. Since we focus so much on working and productive life in the period we live in, the issue of burnout, which is often discussed in working life, is actually a reflection of the mental and physical health problems we experience throughout our lives. Therefore, high-functioning anxiety can be triggered not only in professional settings, but also by societal expectations in various areas of life. From gender roles to parenting. Ways to deal with high-performance anxiety. While high-functioning anxiety doesn't seem like a problem that needs solving because it doesn't usually interfere with your daily life, it can be helpful to work on its symptoms before they turn into major problems like fatigue. 1. Review your thoughts with mindfulness practices. One of the most effective ways to deal with symptoms of anxiety such as anxiety, rumination, and insomnia is through meditation practices that focus on awareness. Since negative assumptions about the future are the primary sources of anxiety and worry, it can be very helpful to recognize thoughts that are unlikely to occur. Distance yourself from them, and transform the dynamics of your relationship with your thoughts. Through mindfulness exercises, you can open up more space in your life for practices that can bring your focus to the here and now, such as meditating, walking in nature, sitting in silence, drawing, cycling, or even taking a shower. 2. Find out what triggers your anxiety levels. As with any psychological problem, working on symptoms alone is not enough in the case of high-performance anxiety. Reviewing the environmental factors that encourage and reinforce your high-functioning anxiety is just as important as trying to reduce symptoms. For example, do you work in an industry, organization where unrealistic and unsustainable workloads are the norm? Do you usually have more responsibilities than anyone can handle on your own? Do you do your job successfully because of your heart or because of social pressure? Is an alternative lifestyle possible for your current reality? Is there a way to do less or different things and still feel appreciated? With these and other questions, look at the effects of yourself or your environment on your anxiety and how much of those influences you can change. 3. Get inspiration from the people you set as role models. If the source of your stress and anxiety is largely related to your work life, tests and inventories that will enable you to gain awareness of your values, interests, talents and skills apart from your professional success can help you deal with yourself, your life and your life expectations from a realistic perspective. In addition, you can read interviews and articles, listen to his speeches or attend seminars of people who work in the same industry as you, who you want to be like in the future, and get inspired by how they manage the work-life balance. 4. Plan and prioritize your responsibilities. With thoughts like, I can do more, I have to do it right, it can turn out to be a very stressful practice of doing more than you can do during the day and trying to do everything at the same time and with the same quality. Planning, prioritizing your work, and sticking to the plan you've created can act as a brake in predetermining how much load you can take and not do more. Prioritize them instead of trying to get everything done at once. And don't push yourself for more, even if you get things done early. 5. Don't waste your energy with unrealistic expectations. Everything may go well, you may encounter unexpected surprises, and worst-case scenarios may happen to you. However, while the probability of a negative outcome for any task, situation or responsibility is the same as the probability of a positive outcome, 50%. Your expectation that every something that's going to go badly is a bit unrealistic. Don't you think? One of the most effective ways to deal with anxiety is to repeatedly remind yourself that most of the anxiety you feel is unrealistic. Don't forget that the anxiety that occurs with rumination and overthinking is different from the anxiety that occurs when there is real danger. And you can reduce the anxiety you experience by reducing overthinking. when you find it difficult to cope with your thoughts and the anxiety they generate. You can ask yourself the following questions. What's the worst that could happen with this situation you've been in? What percentage of chance of bad odds do I think will happen? Do I have any concrete evidence to support my ideas? What is the definition of perfection for me, and what is my goal in trying to reach perfection? 6. Feel free to seek professional help. Know that it is not always necessary for there to be a problem to start treatment. Although high-functioning anxiety disorder, as mentioned earlier, does not harm the normal course of your life, it can gnaw at you from the inside and present much bigger psychological problems in the future. So, if you feel like you're overburdened, that you care too much about outside feedback, that you have perfect expectations, and that you experience emotional challenges from time to time, getting psychotherapy support can help you improve your quality of life. Although more is always appreciated in today's tough work and competitive environment, it often reminds yourself that you are human, that your mental and physical energies have limits, and that sometimes being can doesn't mean you should. Remember that the ultimate goal for all of us is to live a happy and meaningful life. And it's not the only way to be productive, hardworking, perfect, and strong.